Thank you for joining us for Helping Seniors Radio. Join us live every Wednesday at 12 noon on the Space Coast's 90.3 FM, WEJF Radio, and or online at wejf.net. Now let's join this week's Helping Seniors Radio program, already in progress. 770. It managed more than 5,400 calls last year, and today, if you call, you're going to speak to a very nice lady, Karen Wernland. You're not going to speak to Nancy Deardorff, who you might normally reach because, yay, Nancy is here in the studio with us. How are you today, Nancy Deardorff?
Oh, hey, Kerry, I'm wonderful. And you?
I am great. It's so good to have you back from vacation. It means we can spread the workload a little better. But no, seriously, Nancy has been part of the Helping Seniors group since the day it started. You, in fact, go back with Joe back to his Brevard Alzheimer's days. And we were so fortunate that a couple of years ago when Kim, who was managing the phones, and she said, I'm going back to vet school. So she's on her way to becoming a vet, so that's a great thing. But you were so kind to say, I'll come off the board and help you guys get this thing going. And what a blessing that has been. So how are you doing today, Nancy?
Well, you call it a blessing that I accepted, but it's my blessing to be part of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Truly, I mean that. I practiced nursing for over 33 years. I loved it. I think my experience as a registered nurse helps me in this job.
Yes.
Absolutely. But I've never had a more fulfilling job as I have here at Helping Seniors of Brevard. Yeah, so it's a blessing to me.
I want to interject a quick note. I had an interesting call from Denise and Todd Bergman, literally on the way to the radio studio today. And last week, I guess there was a pretty serious call that came in about a senior who needed to be kind of like properly relocated. It was one.
Yes.
It's one of those that you're so familiar with.
I heard that call. Yes.
Those homeless senior calls. So Joe gets involved. Joe is 89, going on 90. I just want to set this stage. If you don't know Joe, Joe is just like the best advocate for seniors there ever has been. So he gets on the phone and works this thing out, and he calls Todd and Denise Bergman with Senior Care Authority. He said, listen, we got to find a way to solve this for the senior. And so Joe, he's not going to take no for an answer. So he got it worked out. And so Denise and Todd were calling me today to say, first of all, they're going to help us this weekend with the car show, which we're going to talk about more in a little bit. But they really wanted to say how fulfilling it was. They say, look, I know we're a business, but this is it just made us feel so good. She said, I talk to the lady every day since we got her settled. She's doing great. It really is a success story. And I go, that's how it works when we get people who care about seniors doing the right things, working together to make this happen, which is kind of my bridge into introducing our guest today, who is really understands this well. She has been in Brevard County for many, many years and is really an expert in a lot of different areas. Today, we're going to focus in on hurricane planning. How appropriate is that, since we just dodged the one that fortunately, at least for us, and hopefully won't be too bad of an impact since it kind of swept through fairly quickly on the West Coast. But it's that time of year, and we've got to be ready for that. So let me, without further ado, introduce her. She is the Director of Operations for one of the top elder law firm organizations in our county. I'm talking about the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen. And if you've been around Helping Seniors any amount of time, Amy has helped us every step of the way. She has some of the most, I always tell her this every time she's on the radio. I said, not only do you have extremely competent people, but every one of them is just genuinely nice, concerned. They do their job. They want to make sure that they're taking care of folks the right way. So in that same mold, it's an honor to introduce Anissa Pellhum. You're the Director of Operations for Amy. Welcome to our little radio studios.
Well, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, we're excited because we're going to have a conversation that echoes some of the things in the article that came from the law office of Amy Van Fossen in this month's Senior Scene magazine. It's called Your Legal Evacuation Bag, and it has a lot to do. It has a lot to do with everything about hurricane planning. And so while a lot of times we're talking to you about the things that you need, bottled water, flashlights, batteries, make sure you have a weather radio, all those kind of things in case the power goes out. We're going to talk about something that might at first seem a little bit more mundane, but it's probably more vitally important to everything that we're going to talk about. And we're going to get into that conversation in just a few moments. And so as we get there, I want to set a stage and just talk about that Joe Steckler, our president founder, he's always talked about an aging plan. And I remember when I first met him, I was a little bit like, what do you mean aging plan? I think I follow. And it's kind of like a hurricane plan. You put together your plan, not because you want to have a problem, but so that you're prepared if you're going to face a problem. And so, Nancy, as you know, along the way, we've talked a lot about, we've tried to make this, the process a little bit less intimidating. So we jokingly call it, let's get your ducks in a row, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's true. It's very much like a hurricane plan. And the question about aging is not what's going to happen. It's when it's going to happen.
Right.
Because something's going to happen. As we age, things happen. Whether it's the death of a spouse, whether it's rising cost of rent or home ownership, different things are going to happen. And so we're urging people to develop their own aging plan. Again, like you say, I have a hurricane plan. I prepared for this hurricane, even though it wasn't supposed to hit the east coast of Florida. But I'm prepared for when something happens. And that's what an aging plan or getting your ducks in a row is all about.
Yeah, and so in Senior Scene, this each month when we publish the yellow pages, we call them in the center of Senior Scene, we try to pick a topic that would be helpful to organizing one of the categories that you should be thinking about. In fact, this month, the title of our little newsletter is called Your Organizational Checklist. And so from the law office of Amy Van Fossen, the article is called Your Legal Evacuation Bag. And again, our guest in the studio with us is Anissa Pellhum with the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen. And both of you guys, you know, from your own background, I know you have the legal background, paralegal background yourself. But, you know, I've heard Amy over and over talk every time saying, I wish we would get people in before a crisis because we just have so many more options. And isn't that the same thing what we're talking about today?
Yes, it is. So oftentimes we get not the actual aging person, but their family members who come in, mom has fallen or something like this has happened. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And the other issue we have in Florida, as you well know, is that a lot of the people who live here do not have family that lives here. They retired here, so their children may live in other states, and it becomes very difficult for planning, which is why crisis is such a problem for us. We can always help crisis, but we would prefer that you pre-plan.
Yeah. You know, and I've often almost like kind of half joked with, because I've had the privilege of visiting, for example, with Katie Jackson Stoltz, who's one of the top attorneys. I remember Amy saying, it's my daughter, but she actually is platinum rated or something with Martin Hubble. So she's actually even ahead as far as that goes. But also I've heard from Tyler Runte, who's also attorney in the firm. I've heard you guys talk over and over that you are prepared to step in and help at any point of the way. And maybe, ironically, it's better business for you because, you know, in a crisis, there's so much more that has to be done. It's more time, it's more billable hours, all those things. But yet you guys really focus on trying to help people get the message. You need to be ahead of this because for a small amount of investment, you're going to have so much peace of mind. We're going to have so many more options, and it's going to save your family time, stress, and money. And it's funny that that's your message because that's really in the consumer's best interest.
It is. It is. And we always want our seniors to have as many options as possible. And the only way to do that is by pre-planning.
Yeah.
So I know it's not always the best topic to have to talk about in the pre-planning stages, but it is it's just invaluable for people to pre-plan.
You know, I know Nancy, when she normally is picking up the phone and talking to folks, you know, a lot of time this year, the calls, I think about 60%, are coming in about housing challenges and things like that. But we get everything, medical, legal, financial, transportation. And Nancy, I've seen you so many times, you're like really like breathing a sigh of relief when the person says, I'm going to have a housing problem in 6 months because they are ahead of the game. Talk about that.
Well, it's so true, and I thank my callers and I compliment them. I say, wow, you are ahead of the curve because you're calling me because you might have a problem in 6 to 9 months, and you're calling me, which is even a short period of time, but at least they're calling me ahead of time versus the calls that I get where someone says a formal eviction notice is now upon me.
Yeah.
So it is, just as you said, it is so important to pre-plan. Once in a while, it's not as often as I'd like. I get those calls from seniors that are pre-planning. They're perceiving a potential pitfall down the road, whether it's housing or any other issue. And those are the people that will stay ahead of the curve and get the best help because there's so many more options before you get into crisis mode.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that we won't help people in crisis mode, but it's much more difficult and your options are less.
Yeah. I imagine you find the same thing, Anissa.
I do. And the other thing with crisis is pre-planning is a lot less expensive than crisis planning.
You got it.
And so we always want to try to preserve as much assets that our seniors have built. They have provided a legacy for their families. We want them to hang on to that legacy. And sometimes when it's a crisis, they have to let go of a lot of that legacy in order to get better options.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I know you guys talked so often about it's why you guys do so many of the seminars and things. It's interesting how you really invest a lot of time in the community that you don't get paid for, but you're trying to educate folks in the community the value of getting, as we say, getting your ducks in a row. Don't be afraid of it. And I've heard the testimonials from people who have been to your office and been through the process. They talk about how good they sleep at night because they did get ahead of that. It's just like my family doesn't have to worry. I don't have to worry. I'm good now.
Yes, and that's always our main goal. For sure, is to make sure that they understand what their options are and why they should choose these options. Yeah. A lot of education doesn't happen for the senior community. So that's why we're here to offer those free seminars for family members as well as our aging seniors so they understand.
Yeah, we're talking with Anissa Pellhum with the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen, and we're going to come back and we're actually going to dive into the meat of what we do. So I want you to grab a pen and a paper because we're going to talk about what you need to have in your hurricane planning kit, and this is as far as paperwork and things that you want to pack if you're having to leave or just make sure everything is secured for a hurricane. But we are going to take a moment because we have a caller with us, a kind gentleman. His name is Antonio Clemens, and he is the director of something that is coming up this Saturday that I want to make sure you're aware of. If you've been around helping seniors, we're in the middle of our season for the Helping Seniors Car Raffle. This is actually, Nancy, our 7th Helping Seniors Car Raffle. And
hard to believe.
It's so much fun. We have 5 very cool cars that the winner gets to choose from in this, including a Dodge Challenger, Chevrolet Camaro, Kia Sportage, a Mitsubishi Outlander, and of course the Mazda Miata convertible. And so I had the good pleasure of meeting Antonio at one of Bill Antonitz's great shows, car shows. Bill is the guy who does all these great shows. He does Duncan Car Show. He does Friendly's Car Show. He does the Fresh Scratch Show. He's helping us, which we'll talk about later in the show, with our open house and grand opening coming up September 30th. But we met Antonio there, and he's putting together something really, really important called the Veterans Car Show. And it's coming up Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Space Coast Convention Center in Cocoa. Antonio, are you there? And how are you doing today?
I'm here.
Good. This is so exciting that you are taking the time to honor vets, and this is actually a fundraiser, right? I mean, you're putting this all together, but this is for a very worthy cause. Talk a little bit about the show that's coming up on Saturday.
Yes, the Veterans Car Show is presented by Pure Promotions. Myself, I'm the event planner for the event, and the young lady by the name of Tona Morris has worked with the veterans hospitals throughout Central Florida. And we're actually putting on this event this Saturday at the Holiday Inn for 520 and 95 up in Cocoa, Florida. And it's looking to be an exciting event. We're looking to have a DJ. Cricket is coming out to do some sponsorship. We have Starbucks. It's going to be giving out some coffee in the morning. We're going to be doing some prize giveaways and giving out some trophies for best car, best old school car, best new school car, and People's Choice.
Wow. Well, it's first of all, it's a great location to have this, and they always tell us, as we kind of dodged a hurricane, that usually they say the weather is really good after the hurricane has pulled through because it just leaves us with nice blue skies. And I believe we're going to have a great day for this on Saturday. And you are right down the street from Boniface Hires Dodge there, who is loaning us a beautiful Dodge Challenger. So I'm so excited that Helping Seniors is going to be out there to support this because number one, we really owe our veterans, a lot. First of all, a big thank you because everything we enjoy is because of their sacrifice. And it's just wonderful that you are using this as an opportunity to be a good fundraiser too, to help veterans charity as well. So there's kind of like a double benefit, a great family fun car event, but also with a lot of neat things to do, but with a great cause in mind.
Yes, it's going to be outstanding. It's actually benefiting the Wounded Warriors project. We're actually going to have a few speakers there as well.
Wow!
And some of our food vendors are Fajita Jacks and Space Coast Tots.
Oh, good.
Which, are local businesses as well.
Well, I love the local thing because, as a 501c3 nonprofit, we are one of the few charities that, we are exclusive to Brevard County. I mean, this is our home. This is where we try to make a difference for seniors. And I'm glad that you're taking the time to promote local organizations and things like that. So if somebody, I guess it's not too late for them to register a car if they're a car collector or something. How would they do that?
Yes, they could actually go to our Eventbrite page. And type in Veterans Car Show, or they can contact me directly at area code 407-530-9517. And again, that number is 407-530-9517. And the reason that this Veterans Car Show is so dear to heart is because my dad was actually Air Force. I was actually almost on the Patrick's Air Force Base, which is now the Space Coast, the Space Force Air Force Base down on A1A. And people like Mr. Bill Antonez and Mr. Bill with the Brevard County car shows. He's actually, given me a lot of great advice. And there's another younger gentleman, Mr. Brandon, who does a lot of car shows in the area as well, that everyone has just been extraordinary as far as reaching out to me. And recently I had the Mopar, Space Coast Mopar, actually reach out to us about coming out to the event as well.
Good. And what if you're not a classic car owner or a performance car owner, but you just want to come out and see the cars? Is that possible? Can you just come out there?
Yes, you can just come out and see the cars. There's a $10 admission just to come see the cars. And children under 12 years old are actually going to be able to come in for free.
Wow. So it's
going to be a family-oriented event.
Yeah. No, this sounds like it's going to be a great day out there. We're so excited, and we're looking forward to it from the Helping Senior side. We're going to bring out that 2023 Dodge Challenger, which is one of the 5 cars that you could choose from on Saturday, October 7th at the American Muscle Car Museum. You'll get that, and you'll get to see that. And, of course, we'll have your tickets. I think Vicki Moore with Moore Insurance Solutions is going to be out there helping us. And also, I just found out that Denise and Todd Bergman with Senior Care Authority have also volunteered to come out. And we'll have information about what we do as Helping Seniors. We're very involved in the veteran side of things too. Nancy Deardorff, our operations director, you take a lot of calls and introduce a lot of vets to services here in the community.
Yes, it's one of the questions I always ask is, are you by chance a United States veteran? Because there are certain benefits that veterans can enjoy that are not available to other callers that are non-veterans.
Yeah, they really have earned that. So, Antonio, one more time. This is this Saturday, right? We're talking about this Saturday.
This Saturday, September 2nd, Labor Day weekend at the Holiday Inn off of 520 and 95. The exact address is 301 Tucker Lane, Cocoa, Florida. And it's going to be at the Holiday Inn, and it's going to be a family and friendly orientated event with old school, new school cars, and
Well, I know we're looking forward to it. We're so looking forward to being out there, and thank you so much for including us in this great salute to veterans. A great cause. So we will see you out there on Saturday. And basically, it's the full day, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it sounds like a great time is planned at the Space Coast Convention Center there in Cocoa. So thank you, Antonio. We are going to move along, and we're about to take our mid-show break. We've been talking, though, for most of the show with Anissa, who is with the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen. And we're talking about hurricane planning. And so as we come out of the break, I want to be sure that you have a phone number and information that you can take notes as we go along. So Anissa, like we said, just before we get to the break, how do people reach the law office at Amy B. Van Fossen? Because I know you guys do so many education events, and they're free. And what a great way to kind of like get your toes in the water and figure out what you do need to be doing ahead of time.
Yeah, you can go to our website at amybvanfossen.com. We list all of the upcoming seminars for the rest of the year. I believe they are listed, dates and times, or you can contact our office by dialing 321-345-5945, and you will reach Mary, our receptionist, who would be more than happy to help you. We also have a marketer who is out and about in the community all the time, and that is Diana Dowdy.
Yeah, she's great.
Yes. We just attended the Wine, Women, and Shoes event on Saturday, and that was a very fun event.
That's great. Well, with the help of Nancy Deardorff, our operations director, Anissa Pellhum with Amy Van Fossen's office, we're going to be back, and we're going to dive into this Your Legal Evacuation Bag. Good to know at hurricane season. Stick around.
And that music of your life means it's time to get the second part of our show underway for today, Helping Seniors of Brevard. And the host of the show and the executive director is Kerry Fink. And Kerry, go ahead, second half of the show.
Well, thank you, John Harper. Welcome back on 90.3 FM, WEJF. Welcome if you're listening online, WEJF.net. And if you're still tuning along in the podcast, this is going to be a very substantive portion of the program. So I want to encourage you to get a pen and a paper. I'm going to introduce my co-host is actually Nancy Deardorff, who's our operations director for Helping Seniors. Hey, Nancy, welcome back.
Hey, Kerry, thank you.
And our very special guest is none other than the director of operations for the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen, whose law office was also voted best of the best in the last year's is that the Florida Today thing that you guys got that award for?
It was.
And Anissa Pellhum is actually the director of operations, and she's kind of an expert in a topic that we need to be especially cognizant of right now. It's your legal evacuation bag. So this is we kind of titled the show Hurricane Planning, and usually you're going to get the tips about, make sure your batteries are fresh, you got your flashlights handy, your bottled water, all those kind of things. But this is kind of a really important conversation that we need to have about being prepared. Joe calls it an aging plan. This is kind of merging an aging plan and a hurricane plan together, isn't it, Anissa?
It is.
Why don't you talk a little bit about how we should be approaching? These are the things that we want to have together and know what we're going to do if we have to leave our home, or maybe even if we're going to stay at home. I'm not sure, but we need to have these things in a safe place, right?
Yes. So typically when you come to our office, we will do an estate plan, which will include a will, a trust, power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, those types of documents that allow people to make decisions for you if you're unable to make those decisions on your own. Those are very important documents, so you should be keeping those in some type of a fireproof safe in your home. However, if you would have to evacuate, we recommend that you make a copy of all those documents and have them in a folder somewhere that is easily accessible if you would have to evacuate quickly. The other things you might want to include would be make sure you have your driver's license, a passport if you have one, your social security cards, homeowner's insurance. All of those things are so important, and they're often not the things you think about when you're packing your evacuation bag.
One of the common themes of everything we were talking about in the first half of the show is the importance of being prepared. I mean, that was actually the Boy Scout motto, as I recall it. But the point is that when you are ahead of the curve and not under the time pressure or the stress of trying to get something done in a certain time, like the hurricane's going to be here X number of hours and they're telling you got to get out, you want to have all these things because while you have a clear head and a clear ability to plan, because as you know, at least for me, if I'm under a lot of time pressure and stress, I'm not going to make the best decisions.
Yes, that's very true. We recommend that you make this copy as soon as you have your documents in place. Sit down before every hurricane season and make sure that you have a checklist in there that has all of these items listed and you have a copy of them and they are somewhere close where you know that they're up to date and you can grab them and take them as you go.
You know, it's interesting because we publish in the center section of Senior Scene magazine each month. We have 12 pages that publisher John Fredrickson makes available to us, and we're always trying to put information in that helps somebody with elements of their aging plan, or as we like to euphemistically call it, getting your ducks in a row. And this particular issue, I'm talking about the August issue, we called your organizational checklist. And that's why the article that you guys have in here where you're talking about, there's actually literally, there's a checklist. It looks like it's 10 or 15 different items that you want to talk about and or that you want to make sure that you've thought about as far as your kit goes. And then we just finished up a interesting conversation at Buena Vida Estates, where we do our it's one of the locations we do our Helping Seniors community talks, and it was called your organizational checklist. And there was a lady there, Christina Knowles, with a company called Make Space Now. She's a professional organizer, so she like if you're like me, you have good intentions, but maybe we don't always get things put up that we want. So she helps with that. There was another lady there named Stephanie Bush who spoke. She has a nonprofit called Brave Bridges, and she, through a lot of tragedy in her family, but she's been able to overcome it, has had a lot of medical conditions, not only for herself, but with her children in her family. And she gave a really good talk about putting together, like, your organizing all your medicines, your checklists, so that if you have to run to a doctor, I guess that's part of this too, Anissa.
Yes, it would be, especially with some of our seniors who, unfortunately have to take quite a few medications. Make sure that you have those packed, but you also want to make sure you have a list of all the medications that you take.
Yes.
Because if you do have to evacuate somewhere and you can't get back to your home, you're going to want to make sure you have enough of those medications, but you're also going to want to make sure that you have a list, because oftentimes it's really hard when someone asks you, what are you taking? And we don't always remember because we take them out of habit.
Yeah. And another thing, it's funny, we were talking before the show and you said, and I thought this is so true. We always think about, okay, we got to prepare for the dog. We got to get the dog or the cat. We have those things in our heads, but we then sometimes, what's the expression, majoring on the minor, but not, not getting the stuff we need to get also, right?
Right. And a lot of the stuff I'm talking about isn't the most sexiest thing to talk about either, but they are so important. Our daughter is adopted. So we always kept those adoption papers close, because if you did have to evacuate, she's a grown up now, but it was important when she was younger, because if, God forbid something would happen, you would have those papers. Those papers would not be easy for us to access if we lost them or if they were destroyed.
That is a point that reminds me of a lot of the conversations I've had along the way with Amy Van Fossen herself, elder law attorney, but also other folks, the elder law attorneys in her office, and they talk about the importance of not assuming that you have, like, if something comes, especially, I guess this would be especially if you evacuated, like, out of the area and something medically came up. It's another reason why you got to have all that paperwork, because as soon as you get to the doctor, the hospital, they're going to, what's your prescriptions? But they're also going to, especially if it was something serious, then they're going to not necessarily know you have permission to speak on behalf of your loved one and all those kind of things, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. So, your powers of attorney and your healthcare surrogate are the documents that allow someone to make medical or financial decisions for you. If you do not have those documents with you and you've evacuated somewhere, they're not going to know nor have copies of those items. So you definitely want to have copies of those items. with you. And if you don't, make sure that you share them with the family members electronically. You can sometimes email or maybe put them on a flash drive and carry those with you.
I was thinking, I had the privilege of talking to several people who, through the law office of Amy Van Fossen, had, like their paperwork elements all put together. And I remember in the past, I've heard like there's probably 5 different things. I think Amy even contributed an article where she was talking about these are the things you definitely want to have. And I remember saying, one particular gentleman said, I remember getting this beautiful binder with all my stuff in it in one place. So he said, for the first time, I really felt organized and kind of on top of it, as opposed to like, well, what would happen if this happens,
Yes. So all of our clients that do a full like trust package with our firm get a beautiful 3-ring binder. And in the binder contains all of the documents that they have signed with some additional information that is very valuable to them. But it also includes tabs. So you can find those documents very easily in there. So they're not just stacked on top of one another. We actually have tabs between the documents that tell you exactly what that document is. So that's why I always say I recommend that you have an additional copy, because what's in your binder are your originals. Those should always stay in your safe.
Okay.
But take a copy, because a copy in a lot of our documents, a copy acts as an original. So you would still have, your originals in a safe place, but you would also have a copy that you could easily grab and take with you, because the binder can be a little bulky.
Yeah. We're talking with Anissa Pellhum, who is the Director of Operations for the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen. And we have another great operations director here with us. That's for our own Helping Seniors nonprofit. It's Nancy Deardorff. And as you're hearing this conversation about getting organized ahead, I know you appreciate it so much when callers call you and they're not on the edge of the canyon about to fall over. You're going to try to help. I think we established that at the first part of the show. You guys are both experts in what you do at helping families at any point, especially in the middle of a crisis. But isn't it nice when you can take a breath and kind of get at it ahead of time?
Absolutely. There is help for people in crisis. And sometimes a crisis occurs on the turn of a dime, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But whenever you can look ahead and plan, your options are much better. So just like Anissa was saying, getting your ducks in a row, which is our motto, your aging plan, planning for the future, for things you don't necessarily want or plan to happen, but they could. Just like a hurricane plan. So it's so important. And again, the further you plan out ahead of time, the more options that you have.
It's interesting because when Joe created Helping Seniors of Brevard, the first thing he said is we needed that senior information line so people could call in. And you're always careful to go like, look, this is not an emergency line. That's what 911 is for. But we are here to serve and help and inform, connect, however we can best make a difference in somebody's situation. So we encourage people to call they call us about everything. But it's interesting to note that typically I call that kind of like inbound. People are calling us with their challenges, their problems, asking us. But the flip side of it is we also try very much to do education to get people to think about these things ahead of time. And Anissa, I know that's kind of like the same thing that you guys face at the law office. You're there when somebody calls in, somebody just had a stroke, now everything's in disarray and you're having to sort through that. But your real preference is if you can get with that family ahead of time, help them map it out the right way.
Yes, because, of course, nobody wants a crisis, but oftentimes it happens. And what do you do when that happens? And so that's what makes us, a great elder law firm, because we can help with the pre-planning, which we prefer to do for seniors. But if there is a crisis, we can also help the family through that crisis.
I've heard that so many times. Is like, I remember talking to some of the folks in the law firm, and I said, I almost can see before I say this, the roll of the eyes when somebody says, well, I got these documents online, and they walk, see, they walk in your office and they say, well, I'm an engineer, I'm smart, so I figured out how to do this and I'm bringing my documents in. But the problem is when that crisis occurs, if those documents are not correct, you don't get a do-over, right?
That is right, because oftentimes when they do come to us in crisis, mom or dad have lost cognitive ability to sign new legal documents. And that's the biggest myth out there. We'll have children call our office and say, my mom's had this fall. She's ended up in a nursing home right now in rehab. And what do we do? And they're telling me I can't make medical decisions for her. I can't pay her bills because I can't access her bank account. So what do I do? And oftentimes, if mom has cognitive inability, it's too late. Yeah. And so there's so many options that come off the table at that point. We can still help the family, but that help will be in the form of guardianship.
Yeah, and that the little I understand about all that is that gets extremely expensive just because there's so much court involvement and things that go into a guardianship, which you could have totally avoided if you were just planning ahead a little bit.
Yes. And we do guardianship, but it's a tough conversation to have with families because it is expensive and it's also very invasive.
Yeah.
So it's public record. So people can look things up and maybe the family doesn't want people to be able to do that.
Wow.
So you just want to this is where pre-planning is so important because it does keep your private things private.
Yeah, Nancy, add to that because you see it all the time when people call up and it's kind of like the last minute and there's not a lot of options. You're doing your best to scramble to find something that could help, but it's just not the same as if somebody gave you time, like, okay, I got to do this in 2 months or 3 months.
Absolutely. I get those calls. And I lived it myself. With my own family. Luckily, with, not that I practice law or know anything about the law, but being a registered nurse and being involved in patients' decisions for healthcare surrogate and that kind of thing, I think I was a little bit ahead of the curve for a lot of people. So I got ahead of that with my own family to where I got that paperwork in place with an elder care attorney. The biggest thing that I experience on the phone as far as callers is people that just want a simple will. They want to go online. And also the cost of this paperwork, to do a trust, to do a will, all that kind of thing. And I understand if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. But if you have money and you just simply do not want to spend it on an attorney, from personal experience, when I was given the cost for a loved one to get all this paperwork in place, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. In retrospect, it was worth every single dime. It's like a root canal. You don't want to have to pay for it, but when you need it, you need it.
Yeah.
And I'm still with my own family working with my elder care attorney, and I can't tell you how important it is to have an elder care attorney on your side to take care of all the nuances. They file things for you. They take care of things for you, which is a lot of footwork if somebody chooses to do it on their own. Plus, they know the law, Anissa, right?
Yes. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up because that is often a barrier that we hear from family members is, wow, the cost to do this. If you go to the internet, you're going to get what you pay for,
yes,
which is nothing. So oftentimes I tell people, you have to understand the value in what we are providing to you, because in the end, you may pay an upfront cost, but it could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You know what, Anissa, I tell people that all the time is what my family member paid out for all of this paperwork paid for itself in the end because it saved so much money.
It does.
Yes.
It does. And I think, sometimes they just don't see the end game until that happens,
Yes,
right?
yes.
There's a lot of people that are like that. But the other thing I want to touch on is veterans.
Yes.
So we have a lot of veterans that we help. We offer a benefit called VA Aid in Attendance. But in helping those veterans, oftentimes we get, well, I can just go to the base and get free documents. So I actually I have 2 son-in-laws who are currently active duty serving.
Wow.
And for them, going to the base before they have to take off overseas is fine for them. But if you are an older person and you are no longer in the military and you are no longer getting deployed, please do not go to the base and think that the documents that they are offering you there will actually help you today, because they just won't. I think it's a great benefit to your younger enlisted veterans, but to your older veterans who are now out of the service, they need a much more in-depth plan to protect them and to protect their legacy.
And this,
There's a reason attorneys go to school for as long as they do. So
yeah. And I was just going to dovetail on what you were saying, because I've heard it from every elder law attorney I've ever spoken with, is they talk about, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, particularly like in the area of VA planning or even Medicaid planning, because, if you start like, oh, I'm going to have to go on VA benefit, or I'm going to have to go on Medicaid benefit, so I'm just going to give my house to my kid, or I'm going to put them on the bank account. I have heard so many horror stories, and this is the advice that you don't get, right, if you're trying to do it yourself, because this is what like Nancy, you have that expression, how do you know what you don't know,
You don't.
Right. And, I'm not an attorney. I've been a certified paralegal for 27 years. But the attorneys in our office are so knowledgeable in every aspect of law that we offer for seniors. And so that's why I encourage people to go to our website and take a look at the educational things that we offer. All of our seminars are free.
Yes.
We will also, if you invite us, if you have a HOA or a group you belong to and you would like some education, our attorneys will actually go out to your facility and have a talk.
Yeah.
We are also going to start a lunch and learn for people that work in nursing homes and assisted livings who maybe don't understand all the ins and outs of maybe Medicaid or how important these documents are.
So we're talking with Anissa Pellhum, who is the Director of Operations for the Law Office of Amy B. Van Fossen. So if somebody is interested maybe in these upcoming seminars, and I got to tell you, I've had the privilege of sitting in a couple of these. They really are great, and they're extremely low pressure. Nobody's sitting there going at the end of this, you got to sign up. It's just a great moment for you to understand the questions you at least need to be thinking about, right?
Yes. And like we talked about before, like you mentioned, it's really a disservice when you start putting children's names on bank accounts and deeds.
Right.
And so we talk about that in depth. So if you are interested in a seminar, you can go to amybvanfossen.com. Our seminars are all listed, and you can make a reservation to attend one of these seminars, and they're free.
Yeah, that's great. All right, we got just like a couple of minutes left, and I want to talk about October 7th. This is the date you got to have on your calendar. That is when somebody's going to find out which car they're going to be driving home from the American Muscle Car Museum.
So exciting.
Yes, we got 5 great choices. And Anissa, you guys have Helping Seniors Car Raffle tickets at your offices. So if somebody stops by there on New Haven, I think it's 211 East New Haven. Am I saying that right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You guys got tickets there, and you also have an office over in the Suntree area, and you guys got tickets there, right?
Yes, we do.
So you get 5. It's one ticket for $25, 5 for $100 donation. You can choose your winning car when we pull your winning ticket. It could be the Dodge Challenger. It could be the Chevy Camaro. It could be the Mazda Miata. It could be the Kia Sportage, or it could be a Mitsubishi Outlander. They all come from A.J. Hires, Boniface Hires family of dealerships. Anissa, I've never had you on the spot to ask which car would you pick if you win?
So I can tell you have a 19-year-old daughter at home that would be so mad at me if I didn't choose the Camaro.
So it's Team Camaro.
Camaro.
So it's so funny because, Nancy, we've always joked this, that you know, in your role, you kind of have to like oversee everything. So you got to deal with all these different factions. You got Team Camaro, Team Dodge, Team Mazda.
Yes. All good teams, all great cars. Of course, I'm not eligible. Being part of helping seniors in Brevard, but honestly, I would be blessed to have any one of those cars. Thanks to AJ.
Yeah.
AJ with Boniface Hires. Thank you, AJ, for your years of support. This wouldn't be possible without him. And also Mark Pylock.
Absolutely. He opens up his American Muscle Car Museum. He's done that every year since he's had that museum open. This is our 7th raffle. This is the 6th year we'll be back at the museum. It's simply because he wasn't open the first year, but he was so kind when Joe and Ed Fleece, our treasurer, went and talked to him and said, would you help us with this? He goes, yeah, sure, I'll help you guys. I want to do something good for seniors. And man, that collection just keeps growing. It's 430.
A lot of people don't know it's here.
Yes,
Kerry.
that's true.
I mean, right here in Brevard County, the largest collection of American muscle cars and memorabilia in North America, right here in Brevard County.
I didn't even know it was here, and I've lived here a long time.
Yeah, you've been there though, right?
I have not.
Oh, are you in for a treat Saturday, October 7th? Because I know Amy really helped us last year. She was a major sponsor of the whole thing. And you guys were there front and center, and you're going to have such a nice time when you see her. You got to get your tickets. You can go by the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen, pick them up. You can go to helpingseniors.carraffle.com and get them. You can call us 321-473-7770. You can go by any of the Boniface Hires dealerships and get them. So that's the time we have for today. Thank you, Anissa, from Law Office of Amy Van Fossen. And thank you, Nancy. We'll see you next week here on Helping
Kerry.
Seniors
Thank you, Kerry.
Radio.